Hello, everyone. Today, we're going to pick up a very important topic in the field of app performance monitoring, and that is app speed. So, today we are going to understand what goes into making your mobile application fast and what you can do to maintain the speed. So, before we move forward, I'll just briefly introduce myself. So, I am Puneet Garg. I am presently working with PayPal in the capacity of Senior Product Manager. Prior to PayPal, I also worked with Uber. I have close to 8 years of experience, and you can follow me on either web or LinkedIn. Now let's move to today's agenda. We are going to discuss what is application performance monitoring and what specifically does fast mean. What are the key factors that go into making an app fast? And if you want to dive deeper, what are the further readings you can refer to? So first of all, let us understand what is application performance monitoring. So basically, you have a mobile application and you do not want to be in a position in which your consumers would have to, wait for so long to, install the app or load the app or navigate the app that ultimately they lose interest and they uninstall the app. That is not something which anyone would aspire for, and typically that is a product manager's nightmare. So application performance monitoring is a field of study in which we understand what all factors go into the performance of a mobile application and how do you improve the mobile performance or application performance by understanding and working on these factors. So a lot of factors go into performance monitoring as such, and the major factors I have listed down here. One is your mobile app fast enough? Understandably, if your app is fast, it will please and delight customers. So a fast app would be a good performing app. Secondly, if your mobile app's UI UX is comprehensible and comprehensible. What I mean by that is, let's say you have a shopping app or e-commerce app. So, do the customers find it intuitive to move from one screen to other? Do they understand the flow, or do they somehow get lost in between and they do not understand how to proceed on to the next step? Thirdly, what is your battery consumption for the mobile app? If your app consumes higher amount of battery, chances are that eventually the customer would find that this is a heavy app and it consumes battery on the higher side, and they are going to uninstall the app. Also, uh, how does your app perform when it runs in the background? This is also very important. If your app is something which requires a lot of resources even when it is not running actively, then possibly again, because mobile devices are short on computing power, so possibly the user would think of either restricting your app's use or uninstalling it altogether. And finally, what is your app's integration with other devices like GPS and other apps in the mobile? So these are the five factors which goes into the application performance monitoring. And in this particular session, we are going to dive deeper onto the first factor which we discussed, and that is how do you make your mobile app fast enough. So let's get started. So first of all, before jumping on to what do we need to do to make your apps fast, we need to understand what does fast mean. So fast generally means the apps which are quick enough to download. Once they're downloaded, they're quick enough to be installed. Once they're installed, they're quick enough to be launched. Once they're launched, they're quick enough to be activated, and finally quick enough to navigate. Now activation means that once the app is launched, the user has to sign up, provide some details, get started with the app. So this is what we call activation. Different companies, different mobile apps have different definition for activation, and but then overall you can assume that activation is somewhat in which you convert a downloader into a user, and navigate is primarily, if how the user finds your screen and the app flow, like if he's comfortable or not. So page flow and UI is specifically critical for the last two factors, activate and navigate. For first three factors, download, install, and launch, we are going to discuss more in detail in this deck. Now we need a fast app would be fast in all these five aspects, and that would be irrespective of the user's location. We're not concerned whether the users are located anywhere in the world, but the app performance should be good enough. The device of the user also brings a lot of challenges, but the target for all the engineering teams and the product managers is to make an app which is device agnostic in terms of performance, and then the network. So you do not want to be in a situation in which some networks provide good app performance, and some networks the app performance goes terribly low, or in the area of low network connectivity your app performance just dives. So this is what we mean by fast. Now let's quickly jump on to understand how do you make your app fast. So primarily there are six factors, and the number one factor is size, right? So understandably, if your app is heavier on the size, the user may have uh, you know slightly higher resistance of downloading the app, because again mobile devices are uh, short and limited on computing as well as processing power. They have limited storage space, they have limited caching power. So if your app is built with size not at the center of it, chances are that the consumer would not download your app, and even if it does, he may eventually uninstall it, because time and again when he wants to install new apps, the new apps would ask that there is no memory space, you need to uninstall some apps, and then the user is inclined towards uninstalling the app which consumes and takes a lot of storage space. So it's better to build a small app, at least an app which does not occupy unnecessarily higher space. So how do we do that? So step number one, or suggestion number one to do that, is to use app bundles instead of universal APKs, and this is specifically relevant when we are working in times of different mobile specifications, device types, and also rather than building for all the devices and all the mobile types and catering with one universal APK, it is always recommended that you go and take app bundles route. Secondly, you can always use dynamic feature module in case of Android, and asset packs in case of iOS. And how you do that is you primarily understand what your app does, what is the target audience. You funnel down the most basic required features of your app from the whole lot of features it offers, and with those core set of features you come up with the basic app, and then along with that you come up with dynamic modules that users can take up according to their needs. So these are two things which you can keep in mind or work on when you are trying to cut down on your app size. Now again, moving on to the next factor, that is images. So it is understood, and this is a common study as well as this is quite comprehensible, that the biggest factor of most of the apps which are there in the universe is images. So images do take up a lot of size, so it's generally the heaviest component. The idea behind reducing images, or trying to optimize on images, is cutting down on apps latency as well as app size. So how do we do that? Number one is we can use image caching. So instead of downloading and retrieving images time and again, you can always use caching, so that most commonly used images are not retrieved again and again. There are not no multiple calls to the servers. Second, you can always use vector images. Again, they are lighter in terms of size as compared to full resolution images. You can always provision for dynamic image sizing, and that is relevant when you are trying to build up for different networks for different device sizes. And then you can always try and use filters instead of having a image for different different types, so you can use color filters. So these are particularly important points which can help you try to optimize on image size and image use in your app. uh, Moving on to screen size. So the target is, and the difficulty is, we have different screen sizes, different resolutions, and trying to build up to cater to all these is a challenge, right? So the idea is, anticipation from the industry experts is always is that you design for adaptive UI flows, and you focus on the medium density pixels and the high density pixels. Let's move on to the next. So now the fourth point over here which you can optimize is on the usage of RAM. Now again, because all the mobile phones and the devices, they have constrained processing powers, constrained storage spaces, so the usage of RAM becomes critical. And this is because Android is very brutal on cutting down on apps which are demanding in terms of RAM. So um, uh, and again, the idea is, because today's user, they love to use multiple apps at the same time, they love multitasking, so it's better for you to devise an app, design an app which is kind of relaxing on RAM, which is not very taxing on RAM, right? So what you can do is, you can when you have multiple services, you can put up a limit on the lifespan of the services, so that the passive RAM usage is minimized. You can always optimize your code by using proper folder structures, by removing dead snippets from your code. From the code may be legacy code, right? There may be some issues, there may be some snippets which are not used at all, so the idea is to remove that, so that you do not make make unnecessary use of the RAM. Moving on to next is offline mode, and this is very important for users who are based in countries with poor network or erratic network connectivity. So the idea is, you should always build offline mode as well, when the user should be able to extract bare minimum value from your app. So the first point is, your app should be able to identify poor network. It should be able to uh, fetch the cached data, and caching is very important in this parameter, in this vertical. And once you do that, so if you have poor network, you have identified that, you have used caching, now it is very important you cut down on your external calls. So don't make unnecessarily network calls when you realize that the network is poor. Try to cut down on the services, and that would help reduce your usage of the RAM, reduce usage on the server, as well as reduce the battery consumption. And finally, trying to optimize on the network calls. So how do you do that? As a general rule, take up loading of text before images, and these loading and these calls should be asynchronous. So always text first, images later. Second is adapt to network quality, and this is somewhat the same thing which we covered in the offline mode. Then also, you should always avoid duplicate network requests, and time and again this happens that in a mobile application, at the same time you make two calls to the server, and this should be rather avoided because it creates a hell lot of problem. Also, you need to have a clean, efficient API structure. Finally, the idea is that you should develop a content delivery network, so that the to and fro time of travel of data packets is minimized, and the user retrieves the information in the minimum possible time, and this reflects in the optimized app latency for your mobile application. So these are the things which you can keep in mind if you want to try and build a fast app. If you want to dive deeper into these topics, these are the further links which I've provided over here. You can go and study each of these. Now, if you want to get access to this deck free of cost. Please share your email ID in the comment section below, and I'll happily send this deck over to you. I hope this was helpful for you to get started, at least in the field of application performance monitoring and specifically application speed. If you do have some further questions, please put them in the comment section below. I'll try to answer them. If you want this access to the deck, please put up your email IDs below in the comment section. Thank you for your time. Have a good day.